What's the magic word? Here's a look at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, DC Rebirth, Shazam. Billy Batson's parents died when he was still a baby. The orphan child believed he had no one to rely on and had to fend for himself. But one day, he was guided to the Rock of Eternity, where the ancient wizard Shazam waited. The world needed heroes, and the boy became the wizard's new champion, able to transform himself into an adult superhero by calling down a magical bolt of lightning. Now, whenever evil must be stopped, or people are in need of help, Earth can rely on the power of Shazam. Before we look at Billy and all the things he can do, and even before we measure, there's one thing we should do, and that's thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys. That was horrible. I planned that all out, delivered so badly. I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys. Yes, I would. That did provide this sample of the DC Multiverse DC Rebirth Shazam, which is also a gold label edition figure. We could have a look at this video. Grabbing the tape measure, as promised, taking it right to the very top of his head, clickety-click. The figure stands 6.5 inches in height, or the figure's about 17 centimeters tall. And for your figure comparisons, I wanted to bring in a Superman. But because I'm so bummed by the fact that Henry Cavill isn't coming back as Superman, thank you, James Gunn, for that, I decided to bring in Angry Superman to state my disapproval by the whole thing. Also, as well, I can bring in the DC Rebirth Batman, a figure of the same similar comic line. Now, in this case, at least, Shazam is not only bigger than Superman, he's a lot bigger than Batman. He's got a lot bigger of a head, too, than both the figures as well. We're going to talk a lot more about Shazam's big head in a moment. First, though, let's have a look at the accessories that come along with the figure. First of which, Shazam comes included with a trading card. So nice to see that they're actually using source material rather than figure photography. It's a good-looking figure, don't get me wrong, but I always like when they get the chance to use artwork from an actual page from a book. It looks like Shazam here is eating an apple. That's a fun thing and a healthy thing to be doing. Shazam from the DC Rebirth line, and then on the back here, his real name is Billy Batson. A paragraph read, you can pause and read for yourself, but it happens to also be the same thing I read at the beginning of the video. Shh, don't tell other people whatever you do. I'm going to put that to the side and add it with the rest of my trading cards. Then on to the other things, the figure comes included with a display stand. A circular black matte display stand, DC logo down below here, one singular peg up the top corner that can attach to either one of Billy Batson's boots. You can see he's got holes on both the sides. Despite for the fact he actually has such a large cape and a lot of plastic went into that cape, the figure seems to stand pretty good right now with a wider stance the way I've got it. The figure also comes included with some swappable hands. Closed fists right now are in order, as those are the ones that are attached to his forearms right now, but the figure also comes included with some dynamic gestured hands instead. These are good, of course, if you want to have him in a pose like he's summoning the powers of Shazam from the skies. These simply just swap out. I'll do these more in a moment. Just hold on a second. Hold that thought for a second. Figure also comes included with some energy effects. The energy effects don't appear to be identical. They're making use of a translucent, almost greenish blue. Would that be a safe assumption to say that that's about the color? It's very soft plastic, though. These can fit over top of his fist. They work better with his fist than they do with his hands because the wider hands, you kind of have to get them wrapped around his fingers. It's doable. It's plausible. It just means there's a lot more getting that around his fingers to pull that off. It works so much better, I find, to take them and put them around his fist. Simply just take the figure, grabbing in his hand, grabbing in your hand, and then just sort of navigate the fist all the way through. They don't have to go all the way through. I mean, that's more than enough. And then he has sort of these lightning effects that you can attach onto his forearms. Shall we do the same thing for the other side? Let's do the same thing on the other side. Just again, guide his fist through as best you can. There we go. And you get him kind of, like, again, like, I don't know if I would necessarily display this with Shazam. Honestly, I think I probably would have been happier with something that could have wrapped around maybe his arms. Something similar like Flash, for example. Something I could just wrap around his arms, wrap around his torso, even maybe his legs, so it looked like he was being infused with the magic of Shazam. These look good, but I'd much rather, I think, something I could just wrap around his body, which I could easily just pull from my tickle trunk of other accessories I have from other figures. In fact, I probably even have the same said thing I'm describing right now for a Flash that I've looked at in an earlier review. But I do like the look of these. It's not something I would find myself actually displaying with the figure. Though, I did want to show you guys how to change out the hands. I did make promise to that. Let's go ahead and just remove the hands. Just take them and remove them from the peg. Maybe we'll just do one, because we don't want to spend the whole review just pulling off hands and replacing them. But just to show you what it looks like, pop the hand back in. I might just pop the other one and replace the other one near the end of the review, or maybe in final looks. Leave it with me. As for the figure itself, let's get now a closer look at DC Rebirth Shazam, which again is a gold label edition figure. Head sculpt I really like on this one, although I do feel like there's a couple of things I would have done differently, maybe given him a bigger smile, maybe given him even visible teeth. He's a boy at heart, after all. He is a boy, after all. I think I would have given him maybe a big smile. Like, he has a pretty playful smile on his face right now, but it maybe given him a little bit more teeth would have really sold and drove home the idea that he's actually a boy at heart. I do like the coloring that they've added to his face. His skin tone is generally quite pale, though. They did add a little bit of rosiness to his cheeks, gave him a little bit of warmth, but I do find like the plastic maybe they would have used here is a little on the more paler side. One thing I did want to mention, though, is that his head seems really large. Not necessarily the fact that the neck seems too short, but I find with the head, it just looks like it's bigger than it needs to be. The neck, one thing you'll also notice as well, is the way they've collared the costuming. His neck seems to be on a more an angle instead of being straight up. So that one thing that also kind of throws the proportions of the figure. You can kind of see like the way the neck, for example, sticks a little further out from the suit. It's a little jarring now that you start to see it. From the front, you don't notice it as much, but when you see it from the side, his neck really is bulging out the back or the bottom of the collar here of his suit. Speaking of suit, though, I do really like the look of the suit here from the DC Rebirth. Now, he does have the lightning bolt. The lightning bolt essentially is a softer plastic piece that they would have applied over top of his existing body. The cape is classic-looking Shazam cape, unfortunately omitting, though, the little gold band. I think he would have had a band at the top and at the bottom. Unfortunately, he doesn't have that. In fact, where's my trading card here? Let's just grab the trading card here for reference points. Yeah, you can see like he would have had the gold here running down the sides, and likely, I believe, he would have also had the gold here and the gold down here. Two places, unfortunately, that got omitted. Oh, he also would have had it also in the hood there as well. Adding in that little bit of gold would have been nice to break up all the white that he has here on the back of the cape, but the cape does look good. I like the sculpting of it. I just wish it could have used a little bit more paint on top of it. One thing also with the suit, while I do like the design of it, I feel as if maybe it's a little too orange. Again, just to use the reference point here of the trading card, his suit definitely for Shazam has always been more red than it has been like this orange color. This color almost comes across more like tomatoes, like a tomato red. It's very orangey, and again, I would have preferred, I think, a more darker red myself, but the gold, I gotta say, worked quite well here. And even though there's really not a lot of paint actually happening on the suit itself, there's some really interesting sculpt that they managed to put in there as well. You sort of get that basket texturing that I always talk about, sort of a woven effect. It's a little bit different here in the front of his torso than it is to the sides. He has all this nice little panel lining there in his suit. Doesn't really get picked up at all by paint, but it's nice that at least they sculpted in there. I like that they've also added some lightning bolts in there. That's a smoother plastic to the more coarser plastic that's around it. The sculpting of the boots look good as well. Gauntlets on his arms also do look good, but again, there's not really a lot of paint that I can see here on this figure. For the articulation, though, for Shazam, head rotates all the way around. It usually is the case while you are rotating the head that the neck wants to go along with it. And again, with the neck, the Adam's apple maybe is the one thing that's making the neck also bulging out a little bit more than it really should. The neck is on a ball joint, but the neck is kind of more of an awkward ball joint because I can't really feel like I'm hinging it up and down. I can do it with the head, but the neck seems almost more locked in place. It can only really rotate back and forth, but hinging it up and down is more where it becomes awkward by the way they've actually attached it to the collar. The upper torso is actually on a ball joint, and because this actually isn't attached to anything, it's just free floating, it means it's a lot easier to rotate the upper torso, and equally, a lot easier to rotate the lower torso as well. Figure does have a socket on his arms that allow the hinge to go out at a 90-degree angle, no problems whatsoever. Take the arms, you move them forward and back. He has a bicep swivel. The figure has a double hinge on the elbow, and the hands rotate all the way around, hinging back and forth. Legs do split out once again, relying on those ratcheted joints on the insides of the thighs. Because of that, you can also marginally, very little, rotate the top of the thigh. It's more for the way it was manufactured than anything else. Figure has a double hinge on the knee. Figure has what almost look like articulation in his boots, but I can't seem to rotate them. There's definitely a cut right there. I can't actually rotate the boots back and forth. However, he does have an ankle pivot that moves up and down this way. You can rock it back and forth this way. And there is toe articulation as well. One thing I do want to draw your attention also to the side here is that the tops of the boots, you can see have a little lip of plastic that sticks further down. When you are hinging the feet back and forth, for example, you'll always find yourself clipping these. And the number of times you'll probably find yourself clipping them will ultimately then curl those parts of the boots. But they had to do it, I guess, to make it a little bit more seamless. Overall, again, it's a really nice looking figure. Always been a big fan of the design of Captain Marvel or / Shazam. The figure actually turned out pretty good. There's a few little points, again, kind of more of the color than anything else. The head sculpt is good. Maybe giving him a little more of a bigger smile would have also helped. I think the suit maybe needed to be a little more of a darker red than the orangey tomato red that we get here as well. And of course, can't help but notice the overlooked gold that wasn't added onto the cape. On that though, really nice looking figure, and nice to finally get a Shazam I can add to the rest of my collection. Making use of the dynamic hand, at least for one side of Shazam's body and the electricity effect, I've got a look that I'm going to probably stick with for the time being when I put this figure on my shelf. Shazam, though, is a nice addition to my existing DC Multiverse figures. We don't really have a Shazam now that I think about it. I mean, I think we are getting ourselves eventually a movie Shazam, but for the time being, a comic Shazam hasn't happened until right now with the DC Rebirth release. Now again, this one is a gold label edition. I don't believe gold label figures are as commonly found in retail stores as they are at places like comic book stores. But still, this guy is available right now if you guys are interested to pick this one up for yourself. The overall look of Shazam pulls off a rather effective looking design of the character. Again, he does have a smile, but I would have exaggerated that a lot more than what we actually get here. Maybe even given him big visible teeth. He does have a bit of a larger head, really, when you look at also the rest of the proportions of his body. And short of just overseeing some of the colors that maybe got omitted here on the figure, the darker, again, use of the red that they didn't end up using here for the suit, not to mention, again, the gold wasn't present here on the back of the cape. Those checked off boxes, unfortunately, do result in the figure not being perfect, but still a good-looking Shazam either way that I'm looking forward to, again, putting on the rest of my display shelf, along with Angry Superman. I'm still bummed out by the fact that Henry Cavill won't be coming back as Supes. I can only imagine that they already have a plan in place to reboot. Of course, that's the whole plan. They're going to be rebooting the DC Universe film franchise by bringing in brand new actors. We can only hope that the actor that they're going to be bringing in to fill the boots, the costume that Cavill left behind, is going to be a superior or an equally good Superman. Time will only tell. But in the meantime, though, I'd like to certainly thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did come through and provide the sample of the DC Rebirth Shazam. And we can have a look in this video. What do you guys think of this figure? Is this one that you've already picked up and added to your collection? Or is this one that you're planning to pick up and add to your collection? Let me know down below in the comments section your thoughts on DC Rebirth Shazam. And as well, if you enjoyed this video, hit with a like. As well, if you're enjoying the content and do want to stick around for more, make sure you hit the ever-crucial subscribe button down below and turn the bell notification on. And while we have wrapped up things right now for Shazam, it's definitely going to be a lot more videos coming your way, so make sure you're keeping your peepers peeled to this channel. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.